Oh, good. I see some people joining. Hi, Tiff. Oily Mom, love you. Love all those oily moms out there. Young Living Essential Oils. You guys are awesome. You rock. Hi, Amanda. Kim. Hey, loving all the love here. I really feel good. Cindy, hi. Okay, I'm loving Periscope. It's super fun to be in my living room. And as people are joining, I'm going to give them a few minutes to do that. Oh, hey, Regina. Good to see you. Thanks for joining me on Periscope. That's awesome. Natasha and Brian. Hi, everybody. This is so fun. It's like we're all in my house together, only I'm here and I'm looking at myself in my phone, which is interesting. But I'm loving this. I'm loving Periscoping with you. Love the whole idea of speaking into your life and encouraging you to parent. I'm Trina Titus Lozano, and I'm a counselor, and I'm a parent. I am actually finished parenting. I have 4 grown children, ranging from ages 31 to 22, and 3 are married, and I have 9 grandkids, 8 and under. So it's a lot of people around here. There's 18 of us. We have been fruitful and multiplied. And so, but anyway, I'm a counselor, and I love giving parenting advice. I work with marriages and families here in Grapevine, Texas, and it's a lot of fun, and I just love the idea of helping a lot of you. So I see Kristen. Hi, Kristen. Kristen asked a question yesterday, along with some others, so I'm going to begin my Periscope with actually answering questions from last night. I'm going to be scoping at noon and 9. Daily for a while until I get through the ABCs of parenting. I'm covering the absolute basic criteria for raising incredible kids, spiritually sensitive kids, emotionally intelligent kids, and just all around great kids that you're going to love and that you're going to be proud of. Hey, Skellies, thanks for joining. So I got some great questions yesterday, and if you guys send me questions and I don't get to answer it on the live broadcast, I will watch the replay, and then I will get to you at some point. So keep tuning in at noon and 9 every day, or watch the replays if you can, and that's awesome too. Or just tell other people to watch the replays, whatever it takes, just to get the information out there. I just want everybody to get information about how to raise great kids, because that's our responsibility as parents. And ultimately, that's really our calling. That's really our calling to raise kids and to have kids. Women are fertile, and that's great. Men have a nice seed to plant, and that's great. And together we make babies. And once we make those babies, it's our personal responsibility to raise them and to do a good job. And it is no easy task. It's difficult. It takes a lot of support. So I'm just here to support you, to encourage you, to come behind you. And I'm just so excited that so many of you are joining with me. I love it. I love all the hearts. I just love knowing that people from all over Texas and all over the world can join in on Periscope, and it's going to be fun. So today, the topic is B is for believe. Yesterday was A, and it was A is for authority, and B is for believe. So B is for believe, and the topic today is just about what responsibility we have to help train our kids in their faith. But before I do that, I'm going to get to some questions from last night that I wasn't able to get to. And I've had some really great questions on parenting. So hopefully, as I answer these questions and other parents are struggling with this, it'll help you get some answers to your questions as well. And if you have more, please just comment the questions or whatever, and I'll get to you as soon as I can. But yeah, feel free to comment. In fact, as you're commenting, I'm curious, how old are your children? How many children do you have? How old are they? Yeah, just write it in the comments. I'm curious about that. Okay, so here's a question from yesterday. What should I do about back talking and throwing fits? They usually happen when he is just getting back from his dad's. Well, you know, that when there's a divorce or when the biological parents are not married, that really makes things a little bit more difficult. Keep in mind, Kristen, I'm just going to talk directly to you. Keep in mind that our children's basic needs are love, significance, and security. So it's very important when he comes back from dad that he knows that he's been loved, that he is missed, and that he is very secure, and that your home is a very secure place. Now, please don't use the fact that you might feel guilty or badly about not being with his dad, not being married to his dad. You know, life happens and things happen. And so you have to make up for that a little bit. But I don't want your guilt to make you too permissive. Because if he's arguing and he's back talking you when he gets home from his dad, that's still not okay. Because his dad is his authority when he's with his dad's house, and you're his authority when he's here. And you have to tell him, Mommy loves you, but you have to respect me. So you'd use those words, respect your authority. And when you respect your authority, you talk nice to me. You don't back talk to me. It's not right. And when you do that, you're going to get in trouble. So lay a clear foundation of your expectations. And he doesn't have excuses just because he was just with his dad and he just got back with his dad. He will learn, and you will train him. The rules at your house are the rules at your house. It doesn't matter where he's been. When he comes home, he's not allowed to be disrespectful to you. Back talking is a really bad habit. Arguing is a bad habit. So you just need to stop it immediately. So immediately when they start that, you can put your hand up to your mouth and go. You can put your stop sign and go. And you can just sit there and not say a word. Just put your hand up. And if they just keep talking and back talking you, I just want you to stand there with authority. Visualize the policeman holding his hand out and saying, and I mean, you don't say a word. You keep looking at them and you don't say a word. And who knows what they're going to say or do. But you just wait. And when they stop all that back talking, you can tell them very clearly, you're being disrespectful and you're going to be in trouble for that. Mommy loves you, but you're not allowed to talk to me that way. So I think what happens is people give their kids, they feel guilty about the broken family. And so moms and dads often create excuses for their kids' bad behavior. Look, there's no excuse for bad behavior. There's no excuse for your bad behavior as a parent, and there's no excuse for your kids' bad behavior. You have to demand, and I don't mean demand, I mean expect and follow through with your discipline, meaning discipleship and training. Follow through with your expectation of, you're not allowed to talk to me that way. So anyway, I encourage you to do that. And don't give up. Keep working with them. It's a training process, and you have to keep working with them, keep working with them, keep working with them. But keep your standards very, very, very high. Very high. Okay, well, good. I'm glad you like that advice. No guilt allowed. What's done is done. It's water under the bridge. But you have created a situation that needs to be managed and maintained. But that happens with respect. And in your home, it's an atmosphere of love and peace, period. Okay, second question. My biggest problem is after I say I'm the authority, and then they continue with crying tantrums. It's true. A lot of people do have crying tantrums. Oh, hey, Andrea. Glad you're on your lunch break with me. I'm answering questions from yesterday. If your kid is giving you a crying tantrum, that is still a tantrum. A tantrum is a tantrum, and if they're going to continue crying and screaming, then they're going to have to do that in their own place, on their own time, because I'm not going to listen to it, and it's not going to bother me. So I'll put them in their room and close the door and say, when you're done crying and you've changed your attitude, you can come out. And until you've changed your attitude, you can't come out. So it's up to you. You get to come out whenever you want, but not unless your attitude's changed. So you're not allowed to keep doing this, you know. You need to stop. And then if the crying ends up being an extended period of time, I would set a timer. If you have an egg timer or something with a bell, set a timer and tell them when this timer goes off, you're going to stop crying. Okay? You're crying, and now as soon as this timer, a 3-minute egg timer, the 3 minutes is over, the bell rings, okay? The bell rings. It's time to stop crying now. Lots of times kids need instruction to stop crying because they're ruining the peace in your home. They're ruining the atmosphere in your home. And what they're doing is it's a control thing. So just keep the reins of your authority and keep a standard of atmosphere in your home. And we can't always keep screaming. I don't scream when I'm upset. You don't scream when you're upset. So there is no tantrum phase. A tantrum phase isn't, I wouldn't ever say there's a tantrum phase. Here's the problem with tantrums. If you let kids get away with tantrums when they're 2 years old, guess what? They're going to be 16, 20, 25, 30, 35, 50, still throwing tantrums. And it's because they always have learned that they can manipulate everything through being out of control. And tantrums are never okay. So do your kids a favor and you discipline them now, meaning training them. You discipline them now. You train them now that is unacceptable behavior. Now, as a grown-up, I'm really hoping that you're not throwing tantrums when you don't get your own way. And if you are, that's probably where your kids are getting it from. So be a better example. But remind your kid, you know what? These are the different moods. These are our happy moods. These are our sad moods. These are our frustrated moods. And when you're frustrated, you can do this and this, but you can't do this and this. It's with all of us. So you train them of how to behave and keep teaching them, keep working with them, but don't allow tantrums. Not now, not ever. It's not okay. And if they can't reason, if they can't reason because, like that question from Amanda, they're a toddler, they can't reason yet, you know, it is very, very, very rare that I would ever use, as questions were asked yesterday, corporal punishment, just because this day and age, I can't trust people to not be abusive, so therefore I can't recommend it. So I'll just tell you what I did. But when I don't do it with my grandkids, I don't feel that's my place at all. What I did is I would, never with my hand, but with a wooden spoon, I would smack them on the leg, on the top of the thigh, just to say, you know what, stop. You're not allowed to do that. Stop. With my grandkids, I don't do that. I don't want to do that. I don't have the freedom to do it. And I don't think it's right. I don't think it's a place for a grandparent. So I don't really recommend corporal punishment anymore because, like I say, I can't trust that people won't end up abusing their kids. So if you think it's okay, then you go ahead and do that. But it needs to be like one swat right on the top of their thigh, and it's nice and loud, and it's not even really going to hurt them. What my grandma recommended, and this is brilliant advice, she recommended a rolled up newspaper. So when you have a very young child, kind of like training a puppy, obedience training a puppy, you could take a rolled up newspaper and that loud pop, that's going to stop their tantrum. But it's a rolled up newspaper. It won't bruise them. It won't hurt them. I wish I would have, I didn't even ever know that idea when my kids were little. But my grandma told me recently that that's what her grandma did. My grandma is 92, and her grandma taught her to use a rolled up newspaper whenever there needed to be that instant stop. You know, and that would happen probably around a child is around 2 years old or before they're 2 or right around the 2-year-old age range. But it's not a phase and they won't outgrow it. So the tantrums must be taken care of. Also, another thing you can do is you can take your child and move them. Like if they're throwing a tantrum, say in the high chair. Now, if your child is not sitting in a high chair in a restaurant, it's probably because you're not making them sit in a high chair at home. I think it's really important for kids to sit at the table and to sit in their high chair. It's teaching them manners, and they will eat better if you know. Totally understand. It's so good, especially when she's out of control. Getting her attention is half. Okay, half the battle. Yes, Amanda. Get her attention. Try the rolled up newspaper. I think that might work for you, especially at her age. But set in your mind that today and tomorrow and this week, I'm going to obedience train my child. If it takes more than a week, then next week too. And you can just add week after week after week. Just kind of like your potty training, your obedience training. So this week, I can sleep train, I can potty train, I can obedience train. Maybe you're eating training. Maybe your kid's not eating. So take the time out. Focus on the task at hand to train your child what they need to do. For instance, if they're not sitting in the high chair and they're throwing a tantrum, okay, then I would take them out and take them to another room and tell them, no, you sit in the high chair. It's time to eat. You need to sit. And I would take them right back. Now, you're practicing this at home, so it doesn't matter if it takes you all day. It doesn't matter how loud it gets. It doesn't matter how big they throw their tantrum. You don't ever get upset. You're training them, so you don't get upset. In fact, you expect it to happen. But then when you take a couple days of training them to sit in their high chair at home, guess what? You'll master that task, and they'll be able to sit in a high chair. You can go out to eat. You can have company over for dinner, and you can have peaceful meals at home because you've taken the time to high chair train your child. They sit, they stay because you've trained them. So make them obey you. Train them. It is a payoff. Train them to sit in their high chair. Train them to go to bed. Train them to respect you. So these are things that you start off young. Train them to not talk back to you. Train them to, all these things. And you can just add to the list. Ultimately, we're training them to do everything. And we do that by modeling, and then we do that by expecting certain behavior. Okay, next question. What if you and your spouse disagree with punishments? And I'm just going to use the analogy, if you were a teacher, you would have an assistant teacher. If there's two adults in the classroom, you'd have one teacher and one assistant teacher. The assistant teacher would have an understanding, it's my role to be the assistant teacher, so I'm not the authority while I'm the assistant. They're probably both qualified to be teachers, but one has the job of the teacher, one has the job of the assistant teacher. And I really think that in parenting, it's got to be that same mentality. So for instance, if the mom is the primary caretaker and she's really working on things, then say she's trying to sleep train her child, she's trying to high chair train her child, or she's trying to train her child to not talk back, or to pick up their messes, or whatever you're training them. Then the husband needs to come aside you and to assist you, but yet you can remain the authority, and he needs to partner with you in assisting you, so that together you guys are assisting each other, but you understand we're going to do it the way that the one person is already doing it. Okay. Now, if the husband is the primary caretaker and he has certain things that he's really teaching the kids, and he might be really teaching them stuff in the evenings and on Saturdays and weekends. Well, when he's home, moms and the husband is teaching your kids something, then you be the assistant. They're the teacher now. They're the authority figure. They're the teacher. They're the one training. They're the one doing the discipleship or discipline or whatever. They're teaching the discipline. They're discipling. They're training your child to learn whatever task they're trying to teach them. Whether it's teaching them to not throw a fit, or whether it's teaching them to eat, or whether it's teaching them to open the gate or to close the door or to throw the trash away or whatever. It could be anything. But if someone's in the middle of teaching them, the other person has to act like the assistant. We can't have two teachers at the same time. It's a conflict because there's two authorities at the same time. Same thing if my children are at my house, okay? Then my child, my daughters and my son are the parent of their child. So I can't be bossing their kids around, and I can't be working on training their children in their presence because they're the authority. So then I would act as the assistant, okay? Same thing if I'm babysitting, then I am the authority because I'm babysitting. Then if my husband comes home from work and I've been babysitting and training the kids all day, I'm the authority, then he would act as my assistant. So then, but if I'm gone and my husband has the grandkids, then he is the authority. Then if I come home when he's been in the middle of taking care of the kids, then I would act as the assistant. So we all have the same thing in mind. We all want to raise awesome kids, and we all want our kids to be happy, healthy, well-trained, well-groomed, well-mannered. We don't want them to be just a wreck. And in order for that to happen, we have to teach them. It's very important that we are not, think about if you were a teacher or if you were an assistant teacher. If you guys are both trying to be the authority at the same time, it's not ever going to work. The kids are going to be all confused. Who do we listen to, this teacher or that teacher? So anytime there's a confusion of authority, it's going to be a problem. Oh, I've got another example. So let's say your child is in school. And so when they're in school, they're in a classroom, or say it could be any sort of a situation like that. It could be swimming lessons. Then that swim teacher, they're the authority. So if you're watching swimming lessons and you go and you watch, then you, at that moment, are the observer. Even though you're the parent, you're the observer because you have placed the child under the authority of their swim teacher. So if they're misbehaving, you can take them out and discipline them, bring them back and say, you need to obey your teacher. Okay, your school teacher, your Sunday school teacher, your church teacher, your whatever. And so then we teach our kids to respect others' authority, and we also respect others' authority. So we don't want to ever come against, or we don't ever want two authorities to be happening at the same time. Okay, I hope that answers the question about if spouses disagree. Blended family blended families makes it hard. There's different parenting styles. So here's the question. How do you deal with parents that, oh wait, that's a different question. Okay, blended families have different parenting styles. Okay, my rule of thumb, and this is just my personal opinion, I guess everything I'm talking about, all my advice is my personal opinion, let's be honest here. But anyway, so my personal opinion, I do not have a blended family. My family is an intact family. However, as a counselor, I work with a lot of blended families. And it is my personal philosophy that it works better in a blended family, although it's very important for when everyone has responsibility, parents and step parents. It's very important that the step parent has authority and has responsibility for that child when they are the primary caretaker. But if both parents are together in the same room, at the same meal, whatever, I always prefer for the biological parent to take the primary responsibility. So in whatever way they want to discipline their child, or maybe they don't want to discipline their child, maybe they're being passive. It is what it is. And, but I would, if they're the authority and they say, sure, you can eat candy right now, then the other parent can't say, no, they can't. If they're the authority and they're the biological parent, and in that setting and situation, they're the authority, then don't argue with them. Don't talk back to them. Lots of times we're training kids to argue and talk back because we're actually modeling it and we really don't even realize it. So don't argue, don't talk back in that situation. When there's different parenting styles, if it is severe and very, 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 very different parenting styles, and you guys are having a hard time agreeing on how to make your family work, get some counseling, get some parenting counseling, get some marriage counseling so that you guys can be on the same page. Because whether it's a first marriage, a second marriage, or whatever, if it's a blended family, even more so, as parents, you have to be on the same page so that you're not arguing with each other and talking back to each other, especially in the middle of the parenting, because you have to parent in unity. When I say in unity, I don't mean that you both have to agree. You won't agree. You're two different people. But one acts as the teacher, the other acts as an assistant. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Another question from yesterday. Let's see here. A lot of great questions yesterday. And thank you all for joining me. And also thank you for everybody who's joining on the replay. That's great as well. How do you deal with parents that aren't together, so divorced or maybe never married, they're just not together, and the religious views are different? Well, that's a really good question. And today I'm actually talking about religion, because when I really get into the content of our talk today, I'm talking about religion, and B is for believe, and that's what I'll be talking about. But when there's different religious views, the most important thing, I'm going to say, in this case, let me pretend that it's a Christian versus a non-Christian, or a Christian versus that's that's divorced from, or whatever. It's co-parents that are a Christian and a non-Christian, or a Christian and even an atheist. So I'll pretend that those are the differences, okay? I'm not sure, they didn't say exactly what the situation was. They just said different religious views. Or maybe one's, I don't know. But like a Christian and atheist, that would be opposing views. Christian and Catholic isn't really opposing, because you're using same Bible, same God, same Jesus, same, it can be complementary and it's fine. But if you've got a Christian and an atheist, that's really two opposite things. So, of course, you're both going to be telling your kids different things. So, as the Christian, and I'm a Christian, I'm an ordained Christian minister, and I love my life as a Christian. Let me just say that. I've been a Christian since I was young. I grew up in a Christian home, a Christian family, and I love that part of my life, and I pass that on down to my kids. So, but anyway, as a Christian, it's important that we understand that the three things, 1 Corinthians 13, love, hope, and faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love. So as the Christian parent, even if there's a conflicting religious perspective with your ex, or with the person that you're co-parenting with, your child's parent, just remember, love them, be loving, be kind, be generous, be gracious. Don't be combative, don't be arguing. When your kids are with you, you take them to church. When the kids are with them, they won't take them to the church. But, eventually their kids will get old enough and they'll decide. But you have to understand, faith, hope, and love. The greatest of these is love. So love covers everything. So love, 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 love. And keep loving. Keep loving your ex. Keep loving the person that, and I don't mean loving in a romantic way. I mean in a kind way. I mean in a way that is gracious and understanding and compassionate for them. So that's how I would handle that situation. And then if you want to just tell your kid, if your kid's old enough to understand, just say, you know what? People have different opinions. Faith is a mystery. God is a mystery. We can't see him, so we believe in him by faith. And I have faith, meaning I believe, and your dad doesn't. He just doesn't believe. Some people believe and some people don't. And God gives us that choice. So, you know, just try to simplify it with an explanation, but still stand firm with your religious values. But also, let me just say, if their other home, their other household doesn't have any Christianity or doesn't have any of your faith or any of your beliefs, then you have to take the full responsibility of training if you want your kids to learn. So you would be responsible for taking them to church, for reading them the Bible, for showing them the Bible, for teaching them godly principles that you want them to know as a Christian. You'll just have the full responsibility rather than half. Okay, last question. Thoughts on, this is great, regarding yesterday and the topic of authority. I love this. Thoughts on 1, 2, 3, counting to 3, or a time frame for them walking out the obedience. Great question. I love that. I did it with my kids. It was super successful. I do it with my grandkids now. It works. It seems to work every time. It works like a charm. You know what? It's the kids' deadline, and it's also my deadline. Like, if I count to 3 and they haven't done what I said by the time I say to 3, then it's my deadline to not let it keep going on. Then they're in trouble. You know, I'll pick them up, take them to the other room, and they'll be in trouble. Or whatever it is, whatever form of punishment or discipline you want to give them. Bottom line is they're in trouble. They have to do it by the time you say 3. So it's their deadline as a child. They know your expectations. Their expectations are clear. They're unchangeable. They're immovable. And so it's always consistent. Consistency is key in parenting. So when it's a consistent 3-second rule, you better be here by the time I count to 3. You know, and sometimes you tell them 10 minutes ago that they need to come. Sometimes you can set a timer. You can give them a heads up. You can tell them to look at the clock. As they get older, they can do all that. And I love that. I love using the clock as the guide, using the clock as the deadline. Then I'm not the bad guy, because I never liked being the bad guy. I like things to be fun, and I like to be liked. So, hey, if it's 7 o'clock, it's time for bath. You have to quit playing. It's not my fault. It's the clock. It's just 7 o'clock. It is what it is. So we have to stop and get in the bath. If it's 8 o'clock and it's bedtime, that's not my fault. It's just what the clock says. So we have to get in bed. There's a question from Andrea, a good question. Do you think it's okay to swat a toddler's hand instead of spanking? I don't like it. I don't do it. I don't recommend it. I would rather you take care of things in a more concrete way rather than a knee-jerk reaction. A slapping of the hand is like bam, and it's too out of nowhere, and I don't like it. I don't think that it's reaching for something that is dangerous or breakable. I always go with a firm no, and then I just move their hand or just pick them up and move them. It takes a lot of supervision, especially with your child's age. I have a grandchild her age, and boy, they are busy. It takes a lot of supervision. You have to really supervise you have to supervise and really childproof your home. But yeah, I like a firm no and a movement. So no, and then pull them away from it, rather than the rolled up newspaper or whatever. I don't like slapping them on the hand. Actually, I strongly disagree with any slapping at all. On the hand, on the butt. Just using your hands to smack people around is not good parenting. So I think that's a bad idea. I don't think you're going to get the result that you want. And parents and in-laws, they should respect your type of parenting and just tell them what's okay and what's not okay. But if your kids' grandparents are babysitting the kids and they're the authority, you know, they may have what they would say an old-fashioned way of doing things. But you know what? As the mom, you need to really say, here's what's allowed, here's what's not allowed. As a grandparent, I respect all 3 of my kids have completely different just completely different styles of parenting, and they have completely different things. So when I'm watching whoever's kids I'm watching, I'm going to honor the rules of that parent as a grandparent. And I know that I've got some grandparents to follow, so that's good as well. Okay, I'm actually finished answering the questions from yesterday. If you put more questions in the comments, I will watch the replay, and I will answer them tomorrow at noon. Okay? And tonight at 9, I'll be back scoping, talking about C is for conscience, but right now I'm going to be talking about B is for believe. So, raising our children to believe God as we do. I'm a Christian, and I chose to raise my children to be Christians. My husband grew up Catholic, but he became a Christian when he was a teenager before I met him and before we married. His whole entire family converted to becoming Christians. I come from a long line of Christians, and that's my life. It's my world, and it's really my passion. And when I say I'm a Christian, it's not just a religion for me. It's my faith. It's my lifestyle. And I couldn't function without God. I could not function without my relationship with God. I couldn't function. I couldn't make it through my bad days. I wouldn't be as happy on my good days. So I wouldn't want to live life without God. So my faith is so important to me. I love the fact that I know my identity. I know where I came from, and I know where I'm going. I know that God created me, and I know that because Jesus died on the cross and he resurrected, I can have resurrection life through him, and I can have eternal life. And I love that. And I believe in eternal life, and I believe it like I really believe it. So I taught my kids to believe, well, the way I believed. And then as they got older, as they became adults, actually at different ages for all of them. But now that they're all adults, they all believe, and now they're raising their children to also be Christians. So as they're little and as they're growing up, it's very important that you understand that you don't have the power to make them choose to be Christians. Okay, so it would be your desire that as they grow, that would be their own choice as adults. That would be your desire that they would choose that. I mean, why wouldn't they? If they watched you live a Christian life that's been so fulfilling, so awesome, fulfilling and awesome, why wouldn't they choose it? I mean, it's just a great way to live. But fact is, they get to pick. So if they'd rather be a drug addict or a stripper or a Buddhist or a Muslim or an atheist, I mean, they can. If they want to just be wild and crazy and whatever. I mean, I don't know. They can do whatever they want when they become adults. But as I was raising them, I love the scripture that says, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. And I took that really seriously. I painted it on the wall of my dining room in these huge letters. As for me and my house, and it was kind of like this, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord, period. No, you don't even have to ask what we're doing on Sunday morning. We're going to church. Stories are going to be Bible stories, and you're going to know and you're going to understand, because I took my job seriously as a parent to teach and train my children what a Christian faith was all about and what it looked like. So I'm going to say I assumed, but not as expected, but I had this positive mindset that when my kids grow up, they will choose. They will choose to be Christians. Why wouldn't they? You know, I don't think that we should doubt that, because when we do our job as parents and when they see what a great life you've lived, they're going to want the same life that you've lived. Now, if you're a hypocrite, they're not going to want to be Christians. If you live a life that does not, I'm going to say a life of integrity. Here's the way I explain integrity. Integrity, I love that question from Leilani. Oh my gosh, I love hearing from you. How would I have reacted if my children had not decided to follow Jesus? I'm going to answer that in just a minute. Integrity is an integration of what you believe and how you behave. So it's a coming together of your theology and your reality. So if you are not living a life that is an example of what you believe, your kids are hypocrisy detectors, and it's just going to be weird, and it's just not going to make any sense. So it'll be very confusing to them. So I always made it a purpose that my life was full of integrity and that there was an integration of what I believed and how I behaved. So if I believe, for instance, that, that all things work together for good, then I'm not going to complain about every little thing. In fact, I'm not going to complain at all, because the Bible tells me that I shouldn't complain. It tells me that complaining is not helpful. It tells me that I need to be grateful for everything. So if that's what I believe, that I should be grateful, but yet I'm complaining, there's no integrity there. What I believe and how I behave is not matching. Okay, I believe that God is my provider. I believe that. So that is my theology. Well, then if I am panicking and freaking out and like having a meltdown because my bank account is in overdraft or is barely empty, or my house is going to get foreclosed on, or I'm facing bankruptcy. All of those things have happened to me, by the way, but I did not melt down while they were happening. Why? I mean, I cried and it wasn't easy, but I never wavered with my trust in God. So your kids have to see the fact that what you believe and how you behave matches. It is integrated. It comes together. I'm glad you like that. So that is the key. So statistically, only 2 out of every 10 kids that are raised in church will continue to be Christians as adults. The reason why, in my opinion, is hypocrisy. And the way I define hypocrisy is because their parents are more fear-based than faith-based. They're saying that they're faith-based, but yet they're afraid of everything. They're afraid of accidents. They're afraid of being broke. They're afraid of being a failure. They're afraid of conflict. They're afraid of their kids not turning out good. They're afraid of looking bad. They're afraid of their reputation being bad. It's like all of these fears that are ridiculous if you are a person of faith. Because when you're a person of faith, there's this positive energy that flows through you all the time. The Bible talks about the Holy Spirit, and as the Holy Spirit fills you, it fills you with the fruits of the Spirit, which is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, and faithfulness, and self-control. So when I have those fruits of the Spirit flowing through me, it's impossible for me to live a life of negativity, fear, complaining, panicking, arguing, frustrated, insecure, freaking out, fill in the blank, irritable. It's the opposite. So that is not all of those things. That isn't living an authentic Christian life. Now, having a bad day is having a bad day, but a lifestyle of all those things, your kids are going to say, this doesn't work. If it didn't work for my parents, it's not going to work for me. But yet, if they see you standing strong, it's a no-brainer. They will follow. My kids now, which range from the age of 22 to 31, they all decided to make Jesus Christ their Lord and Savior at different ages. Brooke did as about a 12-year-old. She did her own Believing God Bible study, Experiencing God Bible study. And I had bought her the devotional and the Bible study, but she did it in her room. She owned it. She read it. She loved it. And it really changed her life. So that was a beautiful thing. And I highly recommend that you parents support your kids in their journey of faith. How do you work towards breaking deep-rooted fear to not pass it down to your children? I tell you what, you know that your fear does not control you. That is the answer to that question. Your fear doesn't control you. You control your fear. So you're not a victim to your emotions. You're not a victim to your feelings. So you choose to have faith-based thinking. I believe, rather than I'm afraid, I'm terrified, I'm afraid, I'm terrified. No, I believe. And then you teach your kids the same thing. So that when they get nervous, they get afraid, they get frustrated, you replace those thoughts with I believe. My daughter Brittany said, we walk in miracles. And it's so true. We walk in miracles. Why wouldn't we want to walk in miracles? I believe for a miracle. I believe it can happen. I don't lose hope. I hold on to my faith. I hold on to my hope. And we're going to love each other through the midst of every fear-producing situation. Because when you're afraid, you just want to try to control more. But the truth is, you don't have the power anyway. You don't have the power to control anything except for your own attitudes, except for your own things that you're personally responsible for. So you can accomplish your goals, anything that you're personally responsible for, but anything and everything that takes cooperation from someone else, it's a desire. You don't have the power to make it happen anyway. So if you know that going into it, why would you be afraid? Why would you try to control more? You don't have the power to make sure you don't have a car accident. You don't have the power to make sure your kids don't become drug addicts. I mean, you don't have the power to make sure of that because it takes their cooperation when they get older. So if they turn out awesome, like my kids have, you know what? I don't get all the credit. I don't get all the blame if they turn out bad either. But I do have to know that I did my job. I took the personal responsibility. I modeled a clean and sober life. I modeled a life of not relying even on medications. I'm modeled a life of trusting in God for everything. So if I'm going to trust in God for everything and I model that life, and if you do that, your kids are probably going to want a life like that, because it's a really, really, really good life, and it's a great way to live. So, I mean, of course, I highly recommend it. I highly recommended it to my kids. You know, I had the question a minute ago, what if your kids wouldn't have chosen to follow Jesus? Well, what if is I would keep praying for them, and I would keep modeling my behavior. I would keep loving them, because that's the most important thing, is that they feel loved, and that they feel, you know, that they don't doubt that. However, I would never, ever stop confronting the issue. So if they're believing a lie, which is usually the case, if they're believing a lie, if they're not following Jesus, they're believing a lie of something. So they're believing maybe that they're not good enough. Maybe they have too much shame, you know, like if I knew the whole truth about what they really did or who they really were, that they really aren't good enough. So I would confront them about the lies that they're believing. The main thing with your children, and in the letter E, we talk about emotional intimacy. And so when you have emotional intimacy with your kids, which I did with my kids and I still do, you have these serious talks. You have long talks, and they are almost daily. Sometimes they're daily. Sometimes they're several times a week. Sometimes they're, you know, a little bit less often than that as your kids begin to be adults. But you keep having those heart-to-heart conversations. You keep having them. You keep praying for them. You keep loving them, and you keep your standard, because I would never let it go. I would never let it go. I would never let them shut me up about what I believed would be in their best interest. But with respect and with very, very, very careful emotional intimacy, I would continue to stay very involved in the deepest parts of their lives. And when I say involved, I just mean in a caring way. You know, because as your kids are adults, they get to make their own choices. They're free to make their own choices, and I would let them know that, but they're not free of the consequences of their choices. So I would have talks with them about the consequences of their choices, and hopefully they would make decisions that are in their own best interest. And of course, then we would agree on what that is. Choosing faith over fear, that's the key. Living a life of integrity, that's the most important thing. And knowing and loving God is massively, massively, massively important. It's so important your kids know about faith, about hope, about love. And it's really important that they believe in miracles, because someday they're going to need a miracle. And they're going to need to know that God is real, and that He has a plan for their life, that He created them, and that He loves them, and that He could do miracles. But more importantly, He can do a miracle for them if they just believe. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for your questions. I will see you again at 9 o'clock tonight. I will be here, and I'm super excited to keep scoping with you as we just walk through life together. Keep parenting strong. Keep parenting smart. Love y'all. Bye.